This time I'll call the meeting of the Emergency Medical Care Committee to order. We start with a roll call.
Okay, Will Hiller.
Here.
Chief Sam Clemick.
Here.
Chief Landborg is not here. Harry Robbins.
Aye.
Jody Schaefer. Oh yeah, she said she would be here. Paul Wood. Dr. Lutz. We may not have a quorum. Spencer Harnett. Carla Spencer. Chris Borkin. John Anthony.
Here.
Cheryl Getz.
Here.
Dr. Hawthorne. Joe Cafaro. You have a quorum. It was close. Okay, if I could address this real quick, in the absence of Chief Landborg, Chief Getz is attending remotely, and I just found out about this not too long ago, so I don't have the provisions in the code that allows her to meet remotely, but I think we have to have her basically request and the members agree that she's got a personal issue, usually health issue, but I think you don't have to say what it is. And the membership agrees that she's got something that would qualify under the exemption for meeting remotely, and you can do this, I think, twice in a year. So.
I move that Chief Getz be granted.
Chief Getz, do you have a situation that prevents you from attending here that meets the requirements, or whichever, and I'll add that into the minutes, whatever requirements that are, do you meet the requirements?
Unfortunately, yes, due to my health.
Thank you. Okay, so we need a motion.
I have a motion that the
Very-
Chief Getz be permitted to the exemption to participate in this meeting.
Second.
Thanks. I do just a voice vote.
All in favor?
All right,
All opposed?
Thank you.
Hey.
Oh, sorry, ex officio members, Kelsey Scanlon. Teresa Rios.
Here.
Leanne Magoski. And then alternate members, Mike Essler will be here. Mike DeLeo.
Here.
Thank you. All right. Non-members and staff. So non-members, you can announce your presence if you choose to, but it's not required unless you want to speak on an agenda item.
Susan Duke, Chomp Base Hospital Coordinator.
Rachel Nealand, AMRC, yes.
Justin Reyes, Monterey County Regional Fire.
And Eric Sani with Freedom Medical Transportation. Hey, Steven.
Lakeisha James,
I'm
Freedom
sorry.
Medical Transportation, Lakeisha James. Lakeisha, Lakesha, James. Freedom Medical Transportation.
Everybody?
Staff.
Kimberly Hernandez, EMS Analyst.
Rena Moreno, EMS Agency.
Deborah Hopkins, also with the EMS Agency.
Steve Brooks with the EMS Agency, and online, if you'd like to announce your presence.
Silas
Jalen.
Fisher, Monterey Fire Department.
I got Silas, thank you.
Jalen Neal with the EMS agency.
Jalen, good to have you.
Carolina Coit, EMS Agency.
Thank you.
Mike Esslinger with AMR. Hi, everybody.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Mike. All right, thank you very much.
And under the call to order introductions, it showed that Supervisor Adams was planning on attending. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to make it today. You said we had a recognition for her.
We did, Teresa, would you like to talk about it or talk?
Sure. We had received word that Supervisor Adams was looking to attend our meeting today, but she wasn't able to do that. She is retiring, as probably all of you know. She has been always very interested in EMS, and we wanted to take advantage of the fact that she was going to be here. It is rare that a member of the Board of Supervisors would attend one of our meetings. And so we had gotten a certificate of recognition for her and a pin that we were going to present to her. So we'll just send them to her office after this.
So, nothing says she can't come after she retires, like in January.
Well, we'll work with her office.
Thank you. Is there any public comment?
I have one, Dr. Burley. So it wasn't agendized, but we talked about it at the CCC meeting. It was Monterey's expansion of their ALS agreement. So I'm not speaking on behalf of the Monterey Fire Department, but I'm speaking in support of them. As we discussed in the CCC meeting, this process is going to take over 12 months for them to be able to provide an additional ALS fire engine in their current jurisdiction is how I look at it. Because Monterey Fire Department is providing services to the city of Pacific Grove, the city of Carmel, and the Monterey Airport District. I think, like we said in the last meeting, there are too many layers of bureaucracy that are getting in the way of them being able to provide a better level of services to the citizens. And, as I also mentioned in the meeting, if the fire agencies in this county wanted to take the next progressive step of doing boundary drops, what obstacles would be put in front of us to be able to send the highest level care, fire engine to that emergency. And what I hope is that we can streamline this process for the future for any type of future expansions, any type of contractual agreements, muddying the waters with the auto aid agreements, the mutual aid agreements. And again, I consistently do not understand, because I brought up the example in the CCC meeting. I just took a strike team of engines from Monterey County and one from up north to Ventura County, and there would have been no problem for us to provide ALS interventions in that scenario. So again, all my comments are in support of Monterey Fire Department. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Monterey Fire Department, but hopefully in the future, if we have the opportunities to expand our service areas, that we can look at streamlining the procedurals behind doing so. Thank you.
One point, you used the abbreviation CCC. Some of us understand that, but it may not everyone here understand it. What do you mean?
It used to be the old,
It is the Clinical Care Committee, what used to be the
Right.
Medical Advisory Committee.
Right.
so the meeting prior to this one.
Just so it's everybody understands.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Move on to approval of September 11th meeting minutes. We have a motion
Move approval of September 11th meeting minutes.
and a second.
Second.
We can just do a voice vote. All in favor?
All right.
All opposed?
Chief Getz, did you register a vote?
Trying. Aye.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to reports. Report from the EMS Director, Teresa.
Thank you. Just a few items that I wanted to highlight. One is just a closing of the loop. The EMS agency delivered recognition letters to agencies that participated in the March MCI, and they were very well received. We have there are some pictures. Staff went and delivered them. Steve happened to be there at a time when they were holding a meeting. Steve, is that correct?
Yes, when I went to drop off at Greenfield PD, they were having a staff meeting, and so I was able to present to several of the officers in front of good number of the department are, thanks.
Also on September 12th, the EMS agency joined other bureaus in the health department to provide an overview of the EMS system to Natividad first year residents, and the presentations were also very well received. The first residents were curious and asked a number of questions. We have also joined the Behavioral Health Bureau twice to co-present to the crisis intervention team that provides training to law enforcement to improve response to individuals experiencing behavioral health crisis. Then we have also attended 2 meetings with the Salinas Valley State Prison staff. We mentioned that we have reached out trying to begin to build that relationship. We continue to meet with their team. We offered to schedule a meet and greet with our medical director and their medical staff. We also offered to provide one of their meetings to do a presentation and also provide an overview of the EMS system. And we also offered to attend the meetings in person because they're doing them via Teams or Zoom. And it's not the same feeling. So we want to make sure that we build that relationship with them. So hopefully they'll be able, but we know that there are more hoops to jump through because it is at the Salinas Valley Prison. But we will continue to work with them. Anything that you may want to add, Kimberly, on that?
No.
Okay. Last, something I guess I want to brag a little bit about that we have been fine members of the statewide CQI tag group to share our experience in the implementation of HDE. It appears that we are much further along than many other jurisdictions in California. And so they want to see what is it that we did and see how they might be able to replicate the success that we have had. Also, the health department, part of the team on the policy education, and I forget what it stands for, the PEP team. They learned of the development of our new unusual occurrence application. Their staff reached out because they wanted to highlight that project as an example, a successful example of QI. So once we learn more about that and we know how is it that this highlighting of the project is going to take place, we'll bring back some information. But we see this as these examples as good examples, positive examples of our effort to build relationships with different sectors of the EMS system, and also to educate more the community about EMS, because a lot of people don't know that they don't know who we are as an EMS agency. And so we're starting to make those connections. I think that this 5 examples are proof of that. That's my opinion.
All right, thank you.
Happy to answer any questions.
Question?
Question about the prison. So I don't know how far along everybody's in the meetings, but I'd like to be part of them at some point too. I feel like the CTF group, we've made strides in building relationships with them, but the Salinas Valley Prison folks have been, in my opinion, resistant. We were part of their ERCD, which might be the meeting that you're, but we found them to be less than sort of fruitful. But we're happy to help out to lend our experiences, and people like Spencer, for instance, who work in South County, can give context to sort of the challenges that we face going to the prison.
Yeah, and that is one of the goals that we have in mind. We also internally have talked about it, and I think I mentioned at the last meeting that whether we can get to a point where maybe we add somebody as a representative on EMCC. I mean, they're a very legitimate and big user of EMS, and maybe a way to keep them engaged is to make them part of the committee. We have invited them to both CCC and EMCC. So unfortunately, they didn't attend again today. But I think this is one of those relationships that we're going to have to take small steps to build. But we're putting in the work. Thanks to Kimberly, she's been the one following up with them and ensuring that they get our invitations and we get theirs.
I would support having a representative here of both institutions. Because it would be very enlightening, I think, to them, because I think they tend to live in a little vacuum.
Mhm.
I said, speak from a little bit of experience, but they live in a little vacuum, and full appreciation of the concerns outside the fence, so to speak, is not always evident.
Yeah, when we offered to do a meet and greet with our medical director, one of them, it was almost like a surprise reaction, right? They say a medical director. I said, yeah, no, we do have a medical director, and we offer to do the overview of the EMS system. I think that just as much as they need to learn about the EMS system, we can learn about their operation because
Exactly.
you
It's a
know,
two-way
we gotta-
street.
yeah, and find ways to be more efficient in the way that we provide services to the prison. You know, I know that there are some challenges that you guys are
Oh, yeah.
facing there, so.
Definitely. And I
Yeah.
think with the, like I said, with the CTF group, we have a good relationship. And I think we've made a lot of strides as far as ensuring that the crews and the CTF group were all on the same page about, responder safety. As quick as, I'm sorry, I'm not articulating this right, but moving their patients out as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Right.
But the prison, I feel like that we've had a lot of resistance. So we're happy to help out, and we're happy to, lend our contacts to CTF to the county so that you all can engage them as well.
Yeah, well, we will continue to reach out and attend their meetings, and we'll continue to invite them. And I do feel that this is a relationship that is gonna take time to develop. So we're not giving up. We just started. And so we will continue to invite them. And I really think that it might make a difference if they allow us to attend their meetings in person instead of just, Zoom or Teams. I think it will make a difference, and I hope that they'll take us up on the offer to do a meet and greet with Dr. Burby. So we will continue to report our progress.
Next report's the Clinical Care Committee with Dr. Burley.
Thank you. So we met for the Clinical Care Committee earlier this morning. Just a few of the highlights from that meeting. We did have a discussion regarding delivery of ALS services with Monterey Fire Department in Pacific Grove, and there was some good feedback from Chief Reyes and Silas Fisher regarding some of the delays in getting that approved and just the time frame and bureaucracy of that process. They'd like to see that streamlined in the future, and we heard that. We also discussed the status of the Health Data Exchange Program, which has been moving along well after much effort and much time, but we now have 3 hospitals online with that. Providers, including non-transport providers, are getting good patient feedback through CHOMP, Natividad, and SVH. There were some comments that some of the data from SVH is a little bit less than what they would like to receive, but that's a work in progress. But we are very happy with the progress of that, and we continue to work with me to get them up online as well with HDE. We discussed the buprenorphine LOSOP update, mainly that we had received an approval for some changes to the LOSOP that entailed administration of buprenorphine for pregnant patients who are 16 years and older, and a slight change to the CAL scores that would put us in line with the scores that are being used in the emergency department. And then probably the most significant change is that base contact and base order is no longer required for buprenorphine, which should fully improve our ability to deliver that care and remove some of the potential roadblocks. We had an update from Steve on the 2025 policy and protocol status, which is moving along well. We had good public comment. We're preparing responses for that. And so that process is moving along well as well. I think those are the primary highlights from the meeting. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
What was the timeframe that was discussed for the ALS situation in PG?
The timeframe for the delivery of ALS services to Pacific Grove.
Yes, sir.
So I believe it's been approved by the EMS agency, and it's now pending signature from Board of Supervisors, I believe. And just looking at the way that the meetings are laid out, we're anticipating January-ish for that delivery.
Thank you.
The state regulations require anybody providing ALS services to have an agreement with the EMS agency. In this particular case, because PG is contracting with Monterey for the services, it added a little bit of complication. We were approving Monterey to provide the services, but it was in PG, so we needed also a letter from PG. And then we needed to execute the contract. And you know how it is. County council, city council get involved, and so there was some back and forth on the language of the agreement. But I believe it has been approved by the city.
Yeah, it has been approved by the city council, and we're awaiting signed copies from the city so we can move it forward to the board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Next, operations working group.
The operations working group has not met. We are gonna be having some internal meetings just to discuss just the type of issues or projects they would be good to bring to operations. A lot of the stuff we mentioned at the last meeting comes directly to EMCC. So EMCC sees a lot of those operational reports and discussion of different issues. So we hopefully in January, we'll come back with a plan.
Okay, next is Mohawk.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Mohawk program's been pretty busy with a variety of different things as we've shifted away from COVID stuff. One of the big things has been related to the IV solution shortage. So we've been doing a lot of work with the region primarily related to that. We've also put out some guidance for our EMS providers related to conserving and minimizing the use of IV solutions whenever that's possible. So that is posted on the EMS agency website. It was also sent out to all of the providers in the county. So if you don't have that or have any questions, please feel free to reach out about it. We've done some polling of EMS providers to ascertain the volumes of fluids that they have. And we're also doing weekly polling with the hospital providers on behalf of the region and state to kind of keep tabs on things and make sure we're, keeping situational awareness of what the stock is within the county. So it's a little bit of a challenging situation because unlike COVID, there is not a county stash, regional stash, state stash for people to go to if they should run out of those. So we're really looking at making sure people are reaching out to various suppliers, polling within the county to see if we can assist each other, and then having to reach out to the region to see if they can pull other facilities. So challenging situation, but hopefully that will be improving after the first of the year as the facilities kind of ramp back up and create more of those solutions. But if you do have needs, please feel free to reach out to the Mohawk email and we'll work with you on those. We recently completed the LEMSA section of the hospital preparedness program plan. So that covers things like working with the Healthcare Coalition, responses to MCIs, surge exercises, that sort of thing. So that's submitted to the state and approved. We recently co-hosted 2 ChemPAC trainings with the Public Health Bureau. So had not a huge turnout, but I think a really good variety of people and different agencies that were represented in those classes. So we'll have some work on the go forward just around ChemPAC plans and operationalizing some things related to those. 2 weeks ago, we participated in an evacuation exercise at Westland House, which is Chomp's skilled nursing facility. We were out and able to talk to them about different resources available in evacuations, the use of ReadyNet, that sort of thing. So I think it was a good relationship building with them and good to just talk through some of those plans in case we do need to operationalize them. We're also working with the Healthcare Coalition on medical response and surge exercise. That'll be coming up kind of end of first quarter, beginning of second quarter. AMR has been participating in that, which has been great to see and great to work with them on what that will look like if we do have a surge exercise like that. So that's been a good process so far. More to come on that. We've also been participating with many different county law and fire agencies on the active attacker plan. So we were able to provide some feedback along with some fire representatives related to the EMS portion of that. And I believe, somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, but that should go to the fire chiefs and law chiefs, I think this week or next for approval there. So more to come on that too, as that's finished up. And then finally, we're working with Barry Uasi and the planning group to participating in the planning activities for an active attacker full-scale exercise. And that will be coming up probably, again, end of first quarter, early second quarter of next year. So, and that will be a full scale with some opportunity for teams from different agencies to participate and walk through active attacker response. So that's everything I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Deborah. Next, communication system testing, Kimberly.
Good morning. So you should have the ReadyNet MCI drills and the 800 megahertz disaster medical radio system testing reports in your agenda packet. We're reporting on August and September. I want to point out that CHOMP and Salinas Valley Health had 100% responsiveness in September for the ReadyNet. And CHOMP had 100% responsiveness to the 800 megahertz testing in September. So really great job. I continue to report these monthly to the hospitals so that they can know what their results are and see if there's any challenges and adjust those as they come about. Any questions on ReadyNet or 800 megahertz? Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next, which is the ambulance provider contract compliance. Again, this is included in your agenda packet, so I'm just going to kind of go over. Again, we're reporting August and September. So response time compliance by overall priority for August and September met or exceeded 90% compliance for all priorities. In green, same thing. The reportable priorities all met or exceeded 90% compliance, and that's the same for yellow and orange for August and September. Regarding MPDS, in August, 72% of calls were EMD'd, with 3% being aborted as help arrived. So a total of 75% of calls were EMD'd up until the point they couldn't be EMD'd anymore. And then in September, it was up to 80%, which is one of the highest months we've had. Any questions on contract compliance or MPDS? Okay, thank you.
And who has the fire-based ambulance report?
That's in March.
That'll come in March, okay. Old business, EMCC reappointments.
All right, I was expected to have to come and say, hey, I need more help from you guys, but the reality is honestly, I just need help from city managers because I've been reached out to Steve Adams. I just need his bio.
Okay.
And we can move things forward. So that's really the only outstanding item I need from you guys that I saw, so did my review.
And just to let you know, the members of the EMCC are appointed by the Board of Supervisors. They changed the requirements. So when we submit the nominations, they started requiring the bios. So without the bio, they won't let it go to the board for appointment.
That should be an easy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, and then a couple of folks I think still needs oath of office, but I'll get that from you guys.
Okay, the ambulance RFP, Teresa.
Thank you. Update on the RFP, we have been working with the state on, they had questions. We received some feedback from them on the RFP. They had questions and clarifications, and we work with them and our county council to resolve them. We sent another revision of the RFP. It's in their hands right now, so we're just waiting to hear if this version, they will approve. Unfortunately, it's all I can say about it, as far as, you know, where the status of the RFP itself.
Okay.
A quick question on the RFP. So,
I don't hear.
quick question on the RFP. So the current provider, the agreement with AMR is set to expire when?
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you, thank you. The current agreement is set to expire in June of 2025. And given where we are right now, that we don't have the approval from the state, we are looking at doing a short extension just to make sure that we have ample time to run the RFP.
Okay. So what do you estimate the timeline of awarding a new provider?
Without having the approval from the state is difficult to say. What I can say is that we have seen the state take longer on reviewing RFPs, and it's been in the recent time. In the past, normally 6 to 8 weeks, it was that typical turnaround, and right now it's taking longer than that. What we've learned is that the state has a new attorney that is reviewing all of the RFPs. And is that same attorney that is also involved in the changes of some of the regulations and stuff. So the attention has been divided, and there have been more challenges in some of the RFPs in other jurisdictions. They have gone all up to the state, and I think they're just probably being more careful in their reviews.
And then one final question, what is our contingency plan if the current provider does not want to sign an extension?
Well, we have an agreement that they will extend.
So there's already an agreement in place for the extension?
Yes.
Yes.
And the EMS ordinance revisions on hold, correct? Health data exchange, Teresa.
Dr. Burley gave a very thorough update on the health data exchange. We are celebrating that now 3 out of the 4 hospitals are fully bi-directional, and there has been very positive feedback. Some of the information that is coming out from CHAMP, which is the last hospital to have joined. And then the work with Me Memorial, we did hear that a lot of the heavy lifting has been done. Me Memorial's IT vendor has done this work in other jurisdictions. So knowing that, they said that they didn't think it was going to take very long to complete the implementation at Me Memorial. So keep our fingers crossed.
Any questions? And last of old business, EMS policy 3030.
Yes, I'll lead in with this. So this is the hospital or the communication policy, and this particular section has to do with the ambulance contractor who does the EMD process, providing the EMD determinant code to the fire responders. And Chief Clemic brought this up a while back, and so without any resolution, it continues until this body says, okay, we've got somewhere to move, or, you know, it's just not a possible thing. But the discussion at the time was that AMR is obtaining determinant codes that they have provided, but the issue in the communications system in the CAD is, at least my understanding, that you can't just give that code. It's a dump of a lot more information that kind of clouds everything else that may be a little more of a priority in the CAD system. So back to Chief Clemic, is there anything more you'd like to add on this? This was your item.
No, I think at this point, you know, as we look at changing our mobile data providers, we're switching to a different platform, that perhaps this might be a way that we can work around a little bit easier. I probably take exception to some of what has been represented as a limitation in terms of what the CAD can do. I think it really comes kind of down to a workload issue, and I'm not satisfied with the total response yet. But what we have agreed to is deploying our new platform and seeing what this looks like in a new frame. If I can leave it at that and revisit revisit this. I'd like to keep this item up on our discussion list.
Okay.
We hope to be on our new platform January.
Okay. We will keep it on the agenda. Pending any new info. Sure.
Okay, on new business, meeting location?
So we discussed meeting locations at our last meeting. This is our one body that is Brown Act. Everybody has to be here. So this committee pretty much made their interest in meeting a central location known to the EMS agencies. So for 2025, we will continue meeting here in this building, but in a different room. So we'll be just back down the hall as you came in on the other side of the locked doors. So that should make it easier for everybody. And that will be our location for next, for 2025.
That's good, because my all access card, that's the one door in the entire building that it won't open.
Because elections is here.
Oh, is that what? Yeah, I ran into that door a couple times. Hey, South County response data?
Karina's gonna pull up a PowerPoint for me. So at the last EMCC meeting, we presented, South County response data. So I feel like I'm facing you guys better. South County response data from January through June of this year. And the committee asked us to, because in South County was the city of Soledad, which within the city of Soledad, the prison is within the city limits. So the committee asked us to break that apart. So to any prison responses separate from any responses that are in the city of Soledad. So we broke that apart. So I'm just gonna do. So as I was saying, medical responses for the city of Soledad within the city of limits were extracted from AMR's First Watch online compliance utility from January 1 through June 30th, and then broken apart into two parts, which are the city of Soledad excluding prison responses, and then prison responses only excluding all other responses within the city. All medical responses were sorted and counted as compliant or late and calculated using a straight percentage calculation for each priority and overall. And just a reminder, response time is not a requirement at the city level. But the goal of the review is to ensure that no area or community of the county is underserved. Next slide, please. Okay, so city of Soledad excluding prison responses, there was a total of 789 combined priority 1, 2, and 3 responses. And you can see on the right-hand side of the slide that the overall was 94% compliant with 6% late. And then in the table, there's the priority breakdown. So priority 1 was at 94% compliant calls, priority 2 is at 94 as well, and priority 3 was at 93. Any questions on that before I move on to the prison responses? Okay, so prison responses, again, excluding all other city of Soledad responses, there were 916. Overall compliant responses was 94% with 6% being late. And then in the priority breakdown, priority 1s were at 100%, which there were 49 of them. Priority 2 was at 94% and priority 3 was at 94%. So this is just breaking it apart as we were requested to do. Any questions? Okay, next item is mine. It's the prison impact, which is also discussed in the last EMCC meeting. Deborah touched on this a little bit during the clinical care committee. Our epidemiologist and our epidemiologist intern is looking at what that would look like to kind of look at the data and what the prison impact would be. So we're still working on that, and they're trying to figure out what the best way to look at the data would be. So we're hoping to have a more of a substantial update at the January meeting, but we're just kind of in the beginning of starting to talk about that with the epidemiologist. That's all I have. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. EMS system improvements and unusual occurrence reporting, please.
Deborah's going to do the presentation. But let me just say this. We wanted to give a quick update on unusual occurrence reports. We talk a lot about them, certainly with our stakeholders. We're working on UOs all the time. And one of the things that I want to do is periodically to be able to bring some aspect of the work that we do and provide maybe a little bit of more education, if you will, to the committee members who may not deal with those things on a daily basis, like, the chiefs, members of the AMR team, they certainly know what an unusual occurrence report is, but, the rest of the members of the committee may not know. So it's a quick overview, and we'll pick other areas of EMS in the future and try to bring some information to the committee, just for education.
Next slide, please. So for those who aren't as familiar with the UO program, we have an app on our website that allows members of the EMS system or the general public or anyone who has an interest, concern, something that they'd like to share to us, to log into that and report that. The app sends it to us. It's assigned to one of our EMS analysts who does any follow-up that's needed. We do a review internally, either with EMS agency leadership or our medical director, and look for the different outcomes and follow-up that we need to take on that. So it's really an important component of our QA/QI system. It's kind of the eyes and ears in the field for us. So we get reports that we wouldn't maybe otherwise not be privy to. So it gives us a lot of information on how things are working within the EMS system and possible areas for improvement. The goal is to prevent the occurrence or the reoccurrence of any negative outcomes. So what we encourage people to do is report any situations, any potential situations, so that we can reevaluate things and look at the steps that might need to be taken to minimize any negative impact to patients or the system as a whole. So we work within a just culture framework, and what that means is that we're looking at not only individual behaviors, but we're also looking at the system that we've built. So are there issues within the system or opportunities for improvement, such as a protocol or policy change or that sort of thing that might make it easier for the providers who are out in the field to do their job appropriately and take care of patients in the best possible manner. So depending on the findings, some of the actions that we might take might be identification of, say, an individual paramedic who needs some education or remediation, opportunities provided to them. It may be a performance improvement plan, depending on the severity of the incident. We've really tried to move away from performance improvement plans as sort of the default response to many of the case reviews that we do. I think that has a lot of negative connotations that came with it that maybe we didn't realize internally. And it can be very significant for a paramedic or EMT who's placed on one of those, impacting their employment, their status, that sort of thing. So we try to be very judicious when we use that process. It could lead to disciplinary action. Some of these things are dictated by state regulations, so that's always a possibility. And then it could lead to system-wide changes or training as well, or any combination of these. So it may be an individual paramedic needs some remediation, but also there's a policy issue that we can change as well to address the issue more thoroughly. So, and then finally, some of them don't result in any need for action or may result in a recognition of clinical excellence. So I think we'd love to see more reports of clinical excellence come through. That's probably one of the smaller groups that we get, but we do really like to take opportunity and recognize those when they do come through. All right. So this graph gives you an idea of the UOs that have been submitted over the years. I know the printing's a little bit smaller, but you can get an idea by the columns. We were at 74 last year in 2023. We're currently at 71 with probably another couple that have come in over the last day or so since this was created. So it looks like we will definitely far exceed our number from last year. We look at that really as a good thing though, because that means that people, I think, are feeling comfortable with the Just Culture framework, feeling comfortable reporting issues, and knowing that we're looking for ways to improve things in the system. So I think it's positive that providers and system participants are willing to bring their concerns forward and let us work on, making things better for them and the system. So next slide. So this looks at data from 2023 and the portion of 2024 before we transition to the new app. And the goal here is just to give you an idea of the type of UOs that we receive. So we went through them, kind of broke them down into broad categories. As you can see, the greatest percentage are related to clinical care. So that may be a a protocol deviation, a treatment that didn't go well, a procedure that didn't go well, something that somebody did exceptionally well, that sort of thing. The next biggest group being operations related things. So this could be anything from an MCI response or a vehicle breakdown or an accident or, those sort of things. We did break out behavioral health separately just to get an idea of what percentage calls are related to that. So that might be anything from a patient who was combative with EMS crews to a destination issue related to behavioral health, that sort of thing. But a broad overview for you there. Next slide. So we also wanted to take a couple minutes to go over some improvements that have come from our UO case reviews. So these are just kind of some highlights that we pulled out from a review of UOs that have been submitted over the past couple of years. So number one being the use of epinephrine in traumatic cardiac arrest. We had a couple of reports from the trauma center and various other system participants related to this. We were able to do some education that went through TQIC and then make some policy changes, protocol changes, I should say, as well, that I think has improved this. And we've seen a dramatic decrease in the amount of times that epinephrine has been administered. I spoke a little bit about our changes related to performance improvement plans. So as we were working through these UOs, we got some feedback from our stakeholders and fire agencies in particular that some of our terminology and processes that we're using were challenging for them. So we actually were able to do the UO process, improve the UO process. So quality improvement of the system itself. So changing some of our terminology, re-emphasizing just culture, focusing on that more. Next, sorry. Tired of listening to me? The next item was related to behavioral health patients. We had a couple of incidents where EMS personnel expressed safety concerns and some challenges around when they could restrain patients and needed some clarity in those policies. We were able to make some updates to the policy to provide that clarity, give them more leeway within the written words within the policy to restrain patients when they felt it was necessary to do so for their safety or the patient's safety. And that has led to a decrease in reports related to that. And then finally, we had a couple of episodes where patients at behavioral health receiving facilities in other counties were either refused or there were delays in transferring care. So we were able to work with stakeholders both in and out of county to make some improvements to those transfer processes and decrease the number of refused patients as well. So that is the end of the highlights there. So happy to take any questions if anybody has any comments.
Deborah, Mike DeLeo, CAL FIRE EMS. I just wanted to confirm that for moving forward, for any compliments or from the public or clinical hospital staff on our treatment of our patients, rather than have them write a letter to the MSA or something, to actually push them to this portal and do an unusual occurrence for the positive as well.
Yes, yeah, you can submit positive feedback through the portal as well. So that's a good way for us to track it, keep tabs on it, and make sure we're doing the appropriate formal follow-up for that.
Perfect. I believe that will also help them do it when there's not so many processes to have to reach out and contact somebody. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chief.
I have a question for you, Deborah.
Sure.
Is there some kind of timeline that you try to stick to when you're getting responses back to UOs? Because I've had responses take anywhere from 4 months to 13 plus.
Yeah, that's actually been a big sort of quality improvement initiative for the EMS agency internally. So we have had, we'll acknowledge that we've had some significant delays with processing UOs in the past. We have been working very diligently over the past probably 3-4 months, maybe even 6 months, to really clean those up and make sure that we are closing out all of those older UOs, and that on the go forward, each of the EMS analysts who's assigned those UOs will have a much more manageable number of those and be able to get back in a more timely manner. So as we're getting down to those smaller numbers of UOs, we're still working to kind of narrow down and identify exactly what a reasonable time frame is going to be for those responses, but we are working towards that, and we're down to a tiny percentage of what we had, open 6 months ago. And
Yeah.
there's a
like
lot
in
of,
June, we had about over 50, and right now we have about 12. Hopefully by next week, we'll have them under 10.
yeah,
And so the ways in which we have improved the process is also part of it is the UO app. We used to have a very a clunky Excel spreadsheet for tracking those, and it was very time consuming. We've also had some meetings, at least a couple of rounds of meetings just to try to mainstream the process because it was very tedious, all of the documentation that we needed to do. So little by little, we've been improving the process to expedite the time that it takes an analyst to be able to, do the complete case review. Another way in which we can close out the UOs faster is when we ask for information from our stakeholders. It could be an incident report, it could be whatever it may be that we need. The sooner we get it, the sooner we can complete the case review. Because sometimes that would cause the backlog as well, that we were waiting for documents from the agencies involved and we were not getting them.
I'm sorry, just while we're on the topic, I just wanna, give kudos to the EMS analysts and Teresa as well for really working very hard on this topic. We acknowledge that UOs oftentimes took, quite frankly, an embarrassingly long time to complete and get back to the stakeholders, and that's something that has, I think, bothered all of us for a while. And this initiative over the last 4 to 6 months, the analysts have worked really hard on getting as many UOs closed as possible and getting the time frame of the ones that are remaining to within a very short period of time, 3 months or less. And that's just taken a lot of work. And it's also taken, Teresa's played a really important part of that, of keep kind of holding us to task. We meet regularly and review every single UO that's still open. And the question is always like, what do we need to do to close this UO? What are we waiting on? When will we have that? And so that's been a big initiative, and I think it's really paid off, and we look forward to continuing that in the future.
I can tell you right now, our oldest UO is from the middle of September. So we have made improvements, and yeah, I have to really recognize the work that the team has done. Dr. Burley too, because he reviews them. Nothing goes out of here in terms of UOs and anything that has to do with clinical. He's reviewing those, and he sometimes reviews the operational ones too. So everybody has put a lot of work into getting us up to speed, and when it comes to UOs, we know how important they are. They can lead to some meaningful improvements to the system. So the more timely we are with those, the better. And that's our commitment to continue to improve.
Can you go back to the slide where you have them all broken down? Please. Can you just really quickly kind of summarize what those categories mean in terms of maybe an example of what a UO might look like in that category?
Sure. So behavioral health, maybe a combative patient, EMS provider assault, that sort of thing. Billing is typically related to a concern about a patient's bill that they receive. Clinical care, perhaps a protocol deviation or treatment issue. Destination, frequently questions related to transports of trauma patients to non-trauma centers. Dispatch may be a concern about what unit was sent or posting, that sort of thing. Licensing at all would be typically an agency reporting that one of their providers may have had a lapse certification, accreditation, that sort of thing. Operations, say an ambulance involved in an accident. Personnel would be like an interpersonal conflict sort of situation. And then resource availability, say a facility that was reporting that they attempted to access CCT resources and they weren't available.
Where would training deficiencies show up?
It would depend on what the training was related to. Most likely, typically those tend to be clinical care in nature, so most of them would have fallen in there, but it may be, you know, somebody needs an emergency vehicle operators course, or, you know, dispatch needs to be remediated on a protocol or something of that sort. So it could fall in a variety of categories.
I certainly acknowledge the work that's gone into, you know, improving this process, and I think we've made great strides. I think we've still got some more stuff to talk about. You know, this information is good in, you know, just some of our experiences with the process, and, you know, what we've been able to talk through some of these things. Some thoughts moving forward on policy revisions in the future is also looking at when we get to a point in a UO review, right, where we've where we're not necessarily looking at personnel anymore, where we're looking at either system. What I want to get to is being to make sure that there are some stop gaps in that policy that allow us to identify the weaponization of any of these things that can be, I guess, start to be used punitively. And I'm not saying that it has been. I'm just saying that identifying policy where things are recognized that aren't necessarily fitting into any of these categories, you know, that might actually be more of a customer service or a customer satisfaction thing that might be reflected on either particular agency or an organization, and a process that goes with some extended review, I'd say beyond what would be an internal agency review, specifically where it relates to, say, a county, like a receiving hospital like Natividad, right? It comes back where there's a mechanism by where a UO gets to a point where it has more impartial eyes on it, where it involves in particularly Natividad or any other county facility or county operation or county employees. And again, it's an evolution of policy, just where as this starts to evolve more, looking at where, let's just say it's a very transparent process, especially where there are other county agencies or county players involved, and particularly the hospital. My 2 cents. I don't know if I articulated that well enough or not, but especially where it might take some extra time to review. I think it's very important that this is actually a transparent process when it's all said and done, whether there's an appeal process where we get to go down a road of discipline of an employee, that there is also some protections to make sure that the investigation or the review was thorough and complete and impartial.
Basically, Chief, you're looking for more transparency in the process.
To the extent there can be, yes, but particularly that comment was related to where it deals with a county employee or a facility or county process that is subject of part of the UO, right? Whether it either came from the UO came from that direction, or it came the other direction. Just because if the county is reviewing and the EMS agency is reviewing the conduct, say, of a county facility or process in let's say Natividad, that is a transparent process, especially when it gets to any sort of disciplinary issue on behalf of an agency personnel and conflicts. And that could, you know, like I said, fit into any of these categories like personnel, where it could be construed as a clinical issue, a clinical care issue. I just want to make sure that all of our folks are protected and we are truly in that just culture mindset.
And
Yeah.
that is our focus. I mean.
Yeah, and you
And
know.
I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying as this policy evolves.
I think, so we met 2 years ago, maybe, with some of the fire agencies to discuss kind of just this. And I think that they were very correct in that sort of some of the verbiage that we used to use, like investigation, had a negative connotation. And some of the determinations that we would come up with had a potential for a negative impact on an employee's career or their ability to move through their job unfettered by some of the judgments that we had made. And so we took that back and we changed the UO process so that we were not calling them investigations, we were calling them reviews. But it wasn't just a matter of verbiage. It was really, again, going back to just culture, making sure that we're primarily looking at things from a system-based status. And of course, there are always situations in which you identify, there's a clinical error that occurs. For example, why did it occur? It's again, with just culture, the idea is that in general, if one person makes an error, there's a risk for other people making that same error, right? And so rather than focusing on disciplining the individual who makes the error, it's looking at discussing that with the individual, but also looking at things from a system-based status and saying, like, what changes could we make or should we make to make it less likely for this to happen again? Because ultimately that should be the goal. And then when we do have situations in which we need to address something with a specific provider, I think that's when we go back to the agency involved and we recognize that we are not their employers, right? And that's, I think, something that we really, I think, take to heart in terms of it is not our job to ultimately act as employer. It is our job to make sure that providers are following policy and protocol. It's our job to respond to any concerns that would affect accreditation or certification. And we have a certain mandate from the state to act in that manner to protect the residents and the system. But in terms of where we go from there, we generally will go back to the stakeholder agency and be as transparent as possible in that situation and have a discussion, have a dialogue. Oftentimes, the department has already taken some action, has already had those discussions with the employee, has already taken action on their own to kind of mitigate this in the future. And so we actually appreciate that because it becomes much more of a problem-solving relationship. So I think we really try to do that, but obviously we're not perfect. And if there's opportunities for us to do that better, we're all ears.
And I think my comment was more related to any of these categories being used or in the best way to do this is just to be blunt about it. The LEMSA is a county agency and you have a county hospital, right? With any number of these categories could be representative of a UO where the county as being the regulatory body, the LEMSA regulating for decisions based upon its interactions with another county facility, with other county employees. I want to make sure that's a transparent process. If we were to ever need to cross that bridge, not saying we're there, not saying it happened, just as we discuss this process more, those interactions need to be as transparent as possible.
I add one little piece to that, just to address, because Dr. Burley's right. We start with the just culture process, QI process for everything. But as far as going into the disciplinary process, our process is really laid out in Health and Safety Code and Title 22. So the process is there. How it works out for any individual is based on the response. But as Dr. Burley said, we will work again on the disciplinary side with the employer because that's in the process. That's in Health and Safety Code. So we will just follow that, and that's how we do it, regardless of the agency, regardless of the personnel. That's how we are required to do it.
So it's encompassing and acknowledging of the county agency that could be involved, or the county entity that could be involved, that could be part of the subject of that UO. Yes.
And ultimately, the regulation, again, on the disciplinary side, we're talking individuals. Our process is very, very much prescribed in regulation and statute, regardless of who it is.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I definitely appreciate the work that's been done with this because we are getting those back. Sorry. We are getting them back faster and I do appreciate that work. Seeing as we are getting them back faster, in the event that we disagree with the findings, what's the process for appealing?
Steve, you know that process better than I do.
Oh, thanks.
There is an appeals process.
Thanks, well, that's kind of where I was kind of hoping this would go.
Yeah, there's an
right,
appeals
is-
process.
So anyways, our findings are, as most of you guys know, we send a letter that closure saying, here's what we found, here's our recommendations, whatever. Ultimately, we're then putting it back on the employer, on the agency to deal with our recommendations. If you disagree with the recommendations or find that maybe we've missed something, we don't want you to continue in something that's not correct. Please get back to the analyst who sent that out to you and say, we've got a concern, and then we can discuss, whether the recommendation's appropriate or wherever the concern is. So I don't know if, that's a good question on our UO. I think we're gonna have to create an appeal process, but generally at this point, please just get back to us.
We've basically been doing the, appeal process, without having, necessarily a highly stipulated process in our workflow, but it happens. We send out a letter sometimes and we'll hear back from the agency that says, we think you got this wrong, or we don't think you considered X, Y, or Z. And, we are far from perfect, and we acknowledge that not every determination we make is going to be spot on, and we're happy to go back and look at that. It's helpful. And sometimes it's just a matter of sort of communication that didn't go quite the way it should. Every closure letter that goes out that involves clinical care, I've looked at. And not only have I looked at it, you can back me up on this, but I have edited it thoroughly so that number one, so that I understand what's going out. But number two, it's very important to me that the language is appropriate, that the tone is appropriate, that and sometimes there's a fine line that needs to be walked. And I want to make sure that the recipient on the other end does not feel like we're being punitive or being dismissive or being just not responsive in the way that they think is appropriate. And so that's a part of our process where every clinic, at least clinical closure letter that you get has been vetted by me before it goes out. And so, but I don't always get it right either. So every once in a while we get someone who gets upset, and we do go back and we reach out. Usually, a verbal discussion is best versus email because it's just easier to talk through it. And we're usually able to clear up. It's usually just a perception issue. But every once in a while there's an actual clinical issue that we maybe missed or could have gotten better. So, but we appreciate the feedback for sure.
And I guess we have to create something a little more of an established framework for that process, because since you're asking the question, it makes me feel like folks who receive the letters, it's just done, as opposed to being able to come back. Maybe we have to consider how to make that as a possibility of, sharing a concern related to our.
Oh, I totally agree. And I think maybe expanding upon that also, it allows maybe this committee to look at the numbers of those as well. And I'm not saying that we've had any that have really enticed us to reach out to you guys and appeal it yet. But I think that's important to look at too.
I think we all know we can write a letter if we disagree with
Yeah.
something. We can have that conversation. We all do that. We all have done that.
Yeah, you can always pick up the phone
I
too.
just think, in contemplating where this policy goes from here is some more guardrails that are really gonna, make it easier for everyone to understand what's next.
Yeah.
What's next? If this, then that, that it might help. This is a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't this one of the policies that was on the 2025 policy and review? I believe it was.
70, I'm sorry. I'm
No,
trying to
I
remember
believe
this
it
one.
was because one of the comments, right, that I made, and hopefully we can add this appeal discussion to that, right? But one of the comments was the protection for there's mention in there about FOBAR, right, the firefighter bill of rights. You know, if it does go down type of a punitive action. But, you know, one of the comments that I made was there's no reference to the police officer's bill of rights. And since like you're an EMT and the cops are running around administering Narcan, right? So that was one of the public comments, but I think, you know, hopefully since it hasn't been solidified or adopted, we carry that conversation into the policy and review this process.
Anything further on you all?
I hope that the presentation was helpful and if you want more of this, that was our plan to, if, you know, every now and then bring you something that we do that you may not be so familiar with. I appreciated the discussion here. I think it's very helpful to us, especially as when we have a policy that is going for review.
Understood.
I don't see it.
I
as-
don't think it's on this
I don't
cycle.
think it is. No, I don't, it's not. But based on the discussion, it may come in off cycle. We'll see how that works.
Okay, so move on to CSA 74 disbursement. We had a request to move this from just receiving a report to an action item, so if the committee would like to change this from a report to an action item, I'd need a motion in a second.
The EMS agency is asking that we move this from a report to an action item, seeking endorsement from this committee of the CSA 74 distribution. But that's to this body, we'll say affirmative that we can move this. Otherwise, we'll re-agendize it for the next, but we'll delay, but.
You need a formal motion to do that?
Yes.
or-
Do we want to receive the report first and then decide whether we want to move on to action? Or, I don't know.
This is the standard distribution of the CSA 74 that we do in December. So it comes to this body in the November meeting. I think that it was just an oversight, that it was stated as a report instead of an action item.
In the past, I think we've recommended approval, or I might be wrong in my words there, but there was a vote taken.
Yes, that's the
Yes.
endorsement.
Yeah.
That's
That this is-
endorsement, okay.
How we're planning to move forward. And ultimately, we're looking for this body to look at the numbers we're bringing forward and say, that seems right according to the formulas, and however, Karina explains, you know, what her presentation will be. But ultimately, yeah, that we're looking for this body to say, this meets the agreements and process that we've been following for the last 14 years.
Recommendation,
You,
a recommendation, that's what you'd be looking for out of this.
yeah, basically
Yeah.
that this is what we're moving
Are
forward
you
with.
looking for a motion to make this an action item?
Motion to make, yeah, that would be it. Motion to have this move from a report to an action item, so this body can endorse or not, but we're seeking endorsement.
Well, I think we've all had an opportunity to read it and review it, so. I'll make a motion, we move it from, to an action item.
Second that.
Was there? Yeah, second.
Okay, all in favor of moving this from receiving a report to an action item? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Chief Getz?
I,
She's muted.
You're muted again.
sorry, yes, I,
All opposed? Carried.
Okay, so your agenda packets should include the CSA 74 allocations for fiscal year 24-25. The calculation of the CSA 74 distribution follows a prescribed methodology, which includes workload, that is the emergency medical cost for each jurisdiction, population, and assessed value. We plug that data from each category into a formula and come up with a calculation of the distribution for each jurisdiction. So down here is where you'll see what each agency is going to be receiving for this fiscal year.
Let me reshare.
What's that?
We just took action.
We took
No.
action that we moved this to their, at this point, the agency will be asking. Oh, are
I have
you
one more slide.
one more slide? Okay.
And then we also provided you with the year-to-year comparison. And we provide that so we can see if there are any major fluctuations. But we also share it to show you guys that there are no major variances from year to year. And so we are seeking endorsement from the committee to move forward with the distribution. So we can send them out by December.
Move to approve.
Move, I'll second.
All in favor of approving the CSA 74 disbursement or
Discussion.
recommending,
Any other discussion?
signify by saying aye.
But, and is there any
I'm
discussion?
just making sure we're
Okay.
Yeah.
doing this right.
Is there any discussion?
Okay.
Brain just shut off for a second, sorry. All in favor of recommending the CSA 74 disbursement, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Hang on.
Oh, I'm
Chief
sorry.
Getz?
Chief Getz?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion's carried.
Perfect.
Are there any announcements for the good of the order?
I had one, and
Sorry, real quick.
Oh,
Do we have a timeline for disbursement?
They are dispersed in December.
December?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
After
That's
today,
kinda
they-
creeped
be
out.
dispersed in December.
Yes.
in December.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's a lot of parties in this room that are privy to the State Bill 1061 that Governor Newsom signed. That essentially effective January 1st. Anybody in the medical, healthcare industry cannot report medical debt to the credit bureaus. So I guess the reason I'm presenting it is as 911 providers, especially in the transport realm, that is sort of like the teeth, right? Because we can't refuse care to patients. Where I imagine, and I'm sure the EDs, right, they have to admit patients, they have to take care of them. But I think that the downstream effect of this is going to be, and I think it's going to need to be addressed for our side too, is I'm sure that private practices, dental institutions, all of your other stuff are going to probably establish a blacklist of, hey, you still owe that office this much money, or essentially you got to pay up front. Well, us as service providers of the 911 system, we can't say, hey, you still owe us $20,000 from the last 5 times we transported you. So, I'm not quite sure what the private ambulance providers collection rate is. I know what our collection rate is. But I don't know if the EMSA the state EMSA totally missed it, but I think it's going to put a burden on the providers in the state. I mean, especially the air ambulance providers, the ground providers, because now there's no teeth behind, collecting debts that are owed to agencies. So I'm not sure if you guys discussed that it's nothing we can do about it now unless there's going to be an amendment to it, but I think there's going to be a downstream effect that's going to affect the private providers, the public providers. So, thanks.
Anything else for the good of the order?
Our active shooter exercise going on today, Friday and Monday. Anyone is interested to pop in and take a look.
That's
down
at the
at
old police station.
The old police station, 200 Lincoln.
Anything else? With that, our next meeting will be Wednesday, January 8th, 2025, and that will be in the other room. Forget the name of it, but Diane room. And meeting's adjourned.